You are listening to the Special Needs Children podcast with Chitra Iyer. Chitra Iyer is a parent of 24-year-old Shravan Iyer who has epilepsy, cerebral palsy and autism. She is the CEO of MFA and has been helping families with life-centered planning to reach their personal financial goals. She is also a trustee of a parent support group, the Forum for Autism, which was set up almost 2 decades ago. MFA is a 17-year-old organization working in the personal finance space. They have set up a dedicated practice to help families with special needs children to plan their financial goals and invest for them. The thoughts shared here are a result of the discussion with parents, caregivers, siblings and professionals regarding the planning of a person with special needs. In this expert series podcast, Chitra Iyer is talking to Miss Aradhana Lal, Senior Vice President, Sustainability and ESG at Lemon Tree Hotels Limited. She is a TEDx speaker and is a huge advocate for people with disabilities. She talks about the initiatives of Lemon Tree Hotels in hiring individuals with disabilities. The company's strategy is to build an inclusive employee base, and they plan on increasing their employees with disabilities from the current rate of 10% to 30% by financial year 2025-2026.
Hello everyone. A big warm welcome to you all on this expert series of my podcast for special needs children. I have with me today Miss Aradhana Lal, who leads the sustainability initiatives at Lemon Tree Hotels. Hi Aradhana.
Hi.
Thank you so much for your time and agreeing to do this interview with me. To formally introduce you to all our listeners, Aradhana is a TEDx speaker and leads, as I just informed you, the ESG initiatives at Lemon Tree Hotels, which includes safeguarding the environment and helping a lot of people, primarily through her inclusion and diversity measures. She's an MBA from IIM Ahmedabad and has 29 years of experience in sales, marketing, and corporate communications, and most importantly, sustainability. She was earlier the Vice President, Sales and Marketing at Lemon Tree Hotels. The company's strategy is to build an inclusive employee base, and it has been hiring employees with disabilities for 15 years now, and the goal is to take this current rate of 10% to 30% by FY 2025-2026, which is really a tall order, Aradhana. Today, there are 350 employees with disabilities and 300 economically and socially marginalized employees, making it a total of over 10% opportunity-deprived Indians out of the total employees. Aradhana co-leads the recruitment of employees with disability through the network of 87 hotels and 8,350 rooms in 53 destinations, and leads new initiatives in the disability space. She has, over the last 10 years, run trials with people with Down syndrome and autism, as well as visually impairment or people with low vision. This is in addition to the speech and hearing impaired and orthopedically handicapped employees the company already hires on a regular basis. So thank you so much, Aradhana, for giving us your time. And I'm diving straight to the questions that I'm sure everyone would love to, just listen to you reply to. So, Aradhana, your hotel chain is ranked among the best large workspaces in Asia. Who thought of this brilliant and wonderful idea to hire individuals with disabilities? And what exactly do you mean when you say our business model is to hire people with a disability?
Thank you so much for having me here on your platform, Chitra. I think it's a very interesting space. And people who need to know and need to understand how mainstream employment can be done for persons with disabilities, specifically with autism, this would be a good conversation for them to listen to. Firstly, we've been doing this work since 2007 overall. The work we started with autism was 2013 or 14, but that's a different matter. What we found is that to be ranked amongst the top 10 or even the top 20 of great place to work, it's a matter of many initiatives and many practices in the area of human resources, in the area of people, which includes the inclusion and diversity work naturally. And I think the extent to which we have brought diversity into Lemon Tree has really put us in a different space. It's a unique space. And the Great Place to Work organization acknowledges this. And therefore, it comes out in the results. That's what happens. When you ask me that who started this idea, it was our chairman and managing director, whose name is Pathu Keswani, who was having a conversation with our HR team at the time. My role was different. My role was sales and marketing at that time. And his view was that what would really happen if we hired somebody with disability? Our HR team and our operations team said that we all don't know, and the only thing we can do is try. To which the answer they got from our chairman was, please try. Let's see what happens. So it was done as a pilot, as an experiment at the very beginning. As we started hiring a few people at our 3 or 4 hotels, we didn't have too many hotels then. These were all speech and hearing impaired colleagues at the time. In about 2 years, we reached approximately 20 speech and hearing impaired colleagues, and they were spread across 4 or 5 hotels. That is when a proper evaluation was done, and it was looked at from an HR perspective and a business perspective, that what has this initiative given us? And the very clear understanding, even in those early days, we can see those results today much better. But even in that small little team and in those early days, what was understood was that the enthusiasm, the energy, the desire to perform for people with disability was very, very high, because they would not usually get a chance to participate. And if Lemon Tree was offering them a chance to participate, they really wanted to give their best. We also understood that training was a very, very important aspect. I'll talk about that a little more in a bit. And it was for us to make sure these team members were well trained and the content was provided to them in the way that they can understand it. This will be very relevant for autism when I come to it. When we did this, and we also understood in the case of deaf, that since they cannot speak and since they cannot hear, the only way a hearing person like you and I can communicate with them is through Indian Sign Language. So one of the early steps we implemented at that point was to make sure that all employees in Lemon Tree learned the Indian Sign Language. So today, Chitra, I'm happy to say, anyone you meet at Lemon Tree knows Hindi, knows English, and knows Indian Sign Language.
Wow.
So, yeah, it really works well for us, because out of our employees with disability, the largest number are deaf. So it matters to us. So this is how that original experiment or pilot then became a part of the HR strategy, or as we say, a part of the business model. Now, your question to me also was, what do you mean that it is part of the business model? It means that we are not doing any charity. This is not an external program. It's not being done only for the good outcome. Certainly, it has a good outcome. We will not reduce the power of that. But we are doing it because it makes business sense. I'll talk about that also shortly. And if something makes business sense, you can devise a business model around it. So just to tell you, Lemon Tree Hotels operates in the mid-market segment. We have 87 hotels today, as you mentioned, in 53 destinations, including 2 outside the country. These are mostly 4-star plus, 4-star and 3-star hotels. The brands are Lemon Tree Premier, Lemon Tree Hotels, and Red Fox Hotels. Also, we acquired the Keys portfolio. So those 3 brands are Keys Prima, Keys Select, and Keys Light. We entered a new space about 3 years ago, which is called the upscale space. So it goes a little closer to 5-star, but it is not 5-star exactly. And that brand is called Aurika, Aurika. It's in Udaipur, Kurg, and now under construction in Bombay. So our hotels are largely mid-market. And in the mid-market, what a consumer is looking for, whether he's a business traveler or a leisure traveler, is a good, clean facility, very efficient services, Wi-Fi, a great restaurant where, hot and fresh food is available, meeting rooms, swimming pool, gym, the things he needs, whether he's on a 1-day trip or a 4-day trip. So that is what our brand seeks to provide. Within that, if we can innovate and come up with ideas that make the whole business model more sustainable, like inclusion, like getting people with disability, like getting people from economically and socially marginalized backgrounds, or if it impacts the environment favorably, like using renewable energy, or reducing the amount of water consumption as a hotel, or recycling the water and reusing it, or maybe saving on plastic, finding ways to get to zero plastic. We're not there yet, we're working on it. So, any such innovation or any such idea that allows you to provide your 3-star and 4-star services with a high quality of service and delivery, but also provides sustainable logic, I think the consumer stands to benefit when that happens. And today, in 2023, there are many individual travelers, there are many companies who make decisions about hotels, about airlines, about travel based on the impact on carbon footprint and based on the impact on society and community. And I think Lemon Tree scores very well when that happens. So, this is what I mean. If our business approach is one that is centered around sustainability and ESG, which is environment, social, and governance, then even our HR practices should follow that footprint. So, this is why we do it.
Brilliant. Thank you. Thanks for sharing in so much detail. It was lovely. Everything that you shared about, going beyond what my topic is about disability. You shared about everything else also that you're doing as a chain that matters to the environment and matters so much to people. It's
Yes.
it's really really amazing and superbly commendable about what your team is doing. What I wanted to understand more, Aradhana, is what do you find are the advantages when you hire individuals with disabilities, and how do you go about it? Because I heard you saying it makes business sense. So can you please elaborate?
Yes. So, in fact, this question that why do we hire people with disability or people from economically and socially marginalized backgrounds as a part of our regular HR practice, we get asked this question a lot. So, some years ago, we realized that we must quantify and must elaborate on what is this business sense. So, let me tell you, largely there are two lenses. One is the business lens, and one is the social or national sort of picture. Now, under the business lens, there are again two aspects. One is the employee aspect, and one is the customer or the brand aspect. From an employee perspective, three or four things happen. Number one, we have opened our doors to a wider pool of talent. Originally, we would hire our employees from hotel schools, aviation schools, and maybe a few other colleges. When we opened the doors in 2007, suddenly Lemon Tree was accessing hundreds and hundreds of more candidates than other hotel companies because we were willing to consider people with disability who may not have gone to a hotel school or an aviation school. So that's the first impact. The second impact is the creativity level changes in the team. Can you imagine a person who's deaf or a person who's autistic or a person who's got Down syndrome? They are negotiating life every day with this specific disability, but they find ways to live life very nicely on the basis of the abilities they have. So we should also look at those abilities that they have. And sometimes one or two of their senses are stronger than anyone else's simply because one specific sense may or may not be there. So, what I mean by this is if someone is deaf, his ability to visually see and visually understand things is very, very different from a person who's hearing. So, we've seen that it translates into better service because imagine a very busy coffee shop where there are 150 people around and maybe there are 30 or 40 staff members. And imagine everyone is bustling and hustling around the place. If someone raises their hand or tries to get the attention of a steward, the chances that a deaf steward will see quicker than a hearing steward are very, very high. And our customers who are regulars have understood this. And they, in fact, keep their eyes open for the employees who wear that particular identity card around their neck because they know that somehow they're going to get service pretty quickly if they find a way to communicate with them. So that's a very powerful impact. Then attrition. Most companies in any sector, whether it's hotels or retail or banking or anywhere, constantly face the issue of people leaving the organization. There are some industries where this percentage is pretty high, like the quick service restaurants industry, like retail and so on. Even hotels. In hotels, it's roughly, in our case as a company, it's about 50% or so. But with our employees with disability, it's about half. It could be 20, 25%. So imagine the effort you're making to get new employees to come in, you're training them, you're making them stabilize, and suddenly they're leaving. Whereas in the case of the employees with disability, that percentage is far, far less. So there's a direct impact on our expenses and our HR and our training effort. Another thing we've observed is that sometimes there can be a better operational efficiency. This is not assured, but it can happen. We were observing that our housekeeping room boys, the people who clean the rooms and the floors, who are deaf, clean about 22 or 23 rooms a day, versus those who are speaking, who clean about 15 or 16 rooms a day. So we are talking about a 15% higher efficiency. Now, this is a direct impact on the business outcomes and on your manpower expense. And therefore, it will impact your profitability. So you can see it directly. Now, if you shift the lens to the consumer or the client side, three things are happening. When a new guest comes and tries you out, because he has heard about your inclusion work as one of the reasons, then it becomes a reason for trial. It's not a reason we are trying to put in our marketing communication, it just happens in its natural way. When he stays with you and gets good service, whether he's getting the service from an employee with disability or without disability, if he gets good service, he will become loyal and he will come back to you. There are many of them who will actually speak about you to their friends, their family, their colleagues. They might even write on blogs like TripAdvisor, Make My Trip, Booking.com, and they write very favorably. So they'll describe the kind of service they got, how they felt comfortable at Lemon Tree, and some of them might even name the employee who happens to be an employee with disability. So they become your brand ambassadors. Now imagine these kind of business reasons for going for this initiative. Now, looking at it from a nation's perspective, if in society there are people with disability, why not represent a slice of society in the company? This allows people who normally don't get an opportunity to get an opportunity and also helps them live with dignity and confidence. And for all these reasons, Lemon Tree has considered this to be the business case. And we very openly share this when we talk to other companies and other organizations, whether we're speaking to them in India or outside India. We share this reason for this best practice that we follow.
I think every time you speak and every time you share about all of these initiatives, it's just kind of gives me goosebumps. I hope that everyone who's going to listen to you actually is able to do even a little bit of it in their own workspace and take it to the next. Y'all are showing us a way, which is absolutely amazing, Aradhana.
Thank you so much.
How difficult was it, when you would have initially decided the business decision was made? But what about the acceptance amongst people? Because disabled people as children have gone through enough amount of bullying and abuse and so many things that must have happened. And then finally coming here to get actually integrated is another thing altogether, right? How do you handle all those various challenges from, both sides of the coin?
So you're right. An effort of this kind, which is not really known to have happened in India, in the corporate sector or in society, it will have challenges and there will be things we'll have to work against, literally. But what I want to say is if you're innovating, you will have to consider the environment, you will have to consider external factors, human factors, and you'll have to plan for it. So it was a question of building culture. And this has taken place over these 16 years. What's interesting in our case is our organization turned 20 about 4 months ago. And this work started just around 16 years ago. So what does that mean? That within the early life of the company, we had already entered the space of diversity and we were trying to make it part of our culture. So it was a benefit, you can say, when you start very early, what is called early mover advantage. Organizations that are already well established, whether it's a hotel company, an IT company, a bank, it doesn't matter. But if they've been in existence for, say, 50 years, 100 years, and then they want to bring about change in the last 20, 25 years, it will be difficult, naturally. In our case, same human challenges, but we found ways to build it into our culture. We would counsel our team members, we would sensitize them. So one important aspect of our inclusion program is our sensitization sessions that we conduct across our hotels with the old employees, with the new employees. And this happens regularly. It's happening every month, in fact, for speech and hearing impaired, definitely, and for physical handicap. In the case of intellectual and developmental disability and autism, we partner with our NGOs, our strategic partners, and we take their support to run those internships, because in that case, you don't hire outright. You first run an internship and then you hire them once they complete it and they are able to perform well. Whereas in the case of physical disabilities, you can hire straight away and conduct training as you do for other employees, which is on the job training. So when we are looking at the intellectual disabilities and at autism, the taboo and the challenge around it is higher. So the sensitization sessions are done in partnership with the NGOs through some team exercises, through some activities, through some games, through some videos. We try to show the team how a person who's autistic or has Down syndrome or is a slow learner is able to contribute if you give that person the right input and train them well. And once we started doing this in one or two hotels, our own story became the evidence for the next hotel. Seeing is believing, as everybody says. So we would tell our F&B manager or our hotel manager of the next hotel where we wanted to bring that internship, that come and see the first hotel, come and see the second hotel and see how it's working. And the story spread within the organization. So it worked out really well, and managers would share with each other that, yes, we faced some challenges initially, but if you're patient and if you keep training and making them practice, they will learn. See, in the case of an intellectual challenge in autism, it's about the way they receive information, the structure, the simplicity of language, the use of visuals, the use of videos, making them understand a set of tasks through a role play and making them perform it back for you. So all of these things, when we build it into the internship, the speed of learning and the ability to retain that learning improves. We also use some tools. They could be visual tools, there could be little booklets, there could be some diagrams, different kinds of things to make sure that things are well understood and things are remembered. And this is why our NGO partners become very, very important, like Action for Autism with respect to autism, and Muskan with respect to Down syndrome and slow learners. Just for your knowledge, we were initially doing this work with intellectual disability and autism only in Delhi NCR. We have started the Bombay program on 15 November last year and the Bangalore program on 5th Jan this year. And I can tell you, it took me more than 5 years to engage with the respective NGOs in these two cities and make sure that this could start. It was not a matter of 5 months or 1 year or 2 years. It was a matter of 5 years. And in the middle, there was COVID. So that became a challenge as well. So the point is that there will be challenges, there will be human thinking and social taboos. But if you give out the right message, if you sensitize, if you advise, if you counsel people, it works out well. I want to add one element here, our engagement with parents. Now, in the case of physical disabilities, the engagement will happen a little less, maybe 1 or 2 or 3 times a year. And usually it will happen for a purpose of recognition and, a momentous occasion kind of a thing. In the case of intellectual disability, the frequency of interaction with the parents is much higher, because when you're doing their performance reviews, when you're talking about their day-to-day work, other than the trainee understanding or the employee understanding what's going on, it's also important for the parent to understand, because we need that particular individual, whether he's autistic or has Down syndrome, slow learner, mild MR, we need him to really understand what our ways of working are and to understand the professional practices, which means the parents have to also speak that language and repeat the same kind of information. If the parents are clueless, they won't get that necessary input that they need from their parents. Also, we need the parents to rise to the occasion. So we are a hotel company, we run 24 hours. Our morning shift is 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. Our afternoon shift is typically 3 p.m. to midnight. But in the case of intellectual disability and autism, we have done what's called a workplace adjustment. We have advanced the time by 2 hours. So instead of 3 to midnight, we make it 1 p.m. to 10 p.m. because our partners advised us that if we don't allow a person of these special needs to sleep properly, after a sequence of 5, 6, 7 days, their ability to function is going to keep diminishing. And then we are just losing. It's a lose-lose situation like that. So we are flexible. We do have what we call workplace adjustments. But if we wanted to be an equal opportunity organization, as much as you give someone a chance, you have to also give them responsibility. So what I want to say is, a person with disability will work 9 hours for 6 days a week like a person without disability. You cannot say that you will do only half day. That is not an option. So that's how the equality is maintained. You give the right and you give the responsibility. So I just wanted to highlight the parents' role in this entire sensitization and counseling cycle.
That was amazing. Thank you so much for speaking about it. And what you just shared in the end about actually changing the timings, that was brilliant. It was like a masterstroke to help give that actual opportunity and help all of those individuals to be able to be there bright and shining. I know about those who are in this sector, and people are so excited to be at their workplace. You doing this extra bit, it goes such a long way. I totally understand where you're coming from. Thank you so much. I'm coming to our final question, Aradhana. You're such a big advocate for hiring people with disability. Please, can you share your thoughts on why corporate India today should look at creating more opportunities for this section of the population, just the way you guys have shown how to do it?
So I'm going to first give you the short answer, after which I'll give you the long answer.
Please.
For the short answer, I'm going to borrow from Nike, and I'm going to tell corporate India, after listening to what I had to say for the last few minutes, all you have to do is just do it. That's all. That's the Nike brand line. And in this space, that philosophy of just do it, don't hesitate. There are hurdles to anything that you do which is innovative, but there are solutions as well. So that's the short answer. The more elaborate answer is that in these 15 years, we have found Lemon Tree to be in a position to share its ideas, to share its best practices with many. That's the purpose of this podcast also. And we've been invited by many, many companies within India, outside India, not just in the hospitality or the restaurant business, but also in the retail space, the banking space, financial and insurance space, IT and ITES, automobile manufacturing, all kinds of sectors. Like I'm not able to, garments, like every different kind of sector. And what they're trying to learn from our example is that what sort of a model will work and allow them to also become an equal opportunity employer. So in this period, we have somehow developed a 7-pillar model of inclusion. And we feel that that works for everybody. So I'll just say it very briefly right now. And maybe if your listeners are interested in more information, they can come back to you and we can do a more detailed discussion around the 7-pillar model. The 7 pillars are, number one, the person at the helm of the company, the person who heads it, whether it's your chairman, your CEO, your country head, your president, it depends on the company. They have different designations. Whoever heads the company should believe in the business case and the business sense that I was referring to a few minutes ago, and then cascade it to the entire leadership team. This cannot be only an HR agenda. It cannot only be the agenda of the D&I team. Operations, finance, sales, marketing, security, administration, whatever are the different functions and verticals in your organization, it has to be cascaded to the leaders of all these functions, because employment will take place in all these teams and all these departments, right? So that's pillar one. Pillar two is that you need to have a person focused on it, exclusive person who's running the program, which is the role of us in ESG and sustainability. And also HR plays a role in this. The third pillar is that we need to do sensitization, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, which means teaching the whole team. So we have an employee base of 6,500 people. Just because our chairman understands and say 30 or 40 leaders understand, how does that translate into 6,500 people understanding? So we must conduct sensitization sessions. We must brief people at all our hotels. And we have to do so regularly because of attrition. The older folks might leave, newer ones will come. How do we make sure everybody understands disability? So, sensitization and building a practice out of it is very, very important. The fourth pillar is job mapping. I sometimes feel job mapping might be pillar number one. I don't know really how to put this. Job mapping is that for every role in your organization, you have to look at the key tasks. So if you look at a person at our front desk or a person in food and beverage service in the coffee shop, any such person is doing 25 or 30 tasks on a typical day. So the job mapping is you take this list of tasks, you look at it disability by disability, and you understand, does the disability come in the way of performing the task? Because when that will happen, it becomes infeasible. So either you have to revise the standard operating procedure of performing that task, or you have to give some technology which allows you to overcome that disability, or you have to remove that task from that person's job profile. So job mapping is to decide which are the roles where, example, a deaf person can do maybe 25 out of the 30 tasks, which is a role where an autistic person can manage, say, 22 or 23 or 24 tasks out of 30 tasks. Because suppose they cannot manage 15 tasks, it's like saying half the job they cannot do. Then that's not a feasible role. So this understanding and this job mapping process is quite elaborate. And our strategic NGO partners help us in this process. The ESG team does it themselves, along with the help of our learning and development and our HR team. It takes a number of days to do this. So this is pillar number 4. Pillar number 5 is the partnerships. I have mentioned the word NGO, I don't know how many times. So they are the experts in disability. We are hoteliers. So we need these experts to be available to us, to partner with us and help us do all of the work we are doing in inclusion. The 6th pillar is, before you jump into any disability and suddenly make it a national practice for yourself, you must do some trials or pilots or traineeships. You have to understand that disability, find out the areas where you are weak and how you can improve it, all related to training, naturally. How can we make our training better and better and better? And how can we make our procedures, the way we operate, the way we serve our guests, are there any simplifications we can do anywhere so that when we make it a national practice to hire a deaf person or a national practice to hire an autistic person, it's much smoother. And therefore, I go to pillar number 7, which is go national. So after you've done your pilot, after you've done your trials, if you don't go national, then this is not inclusion, right? You're sort of playing around with some ideas. That's what you're doing. But if you make it your HR strategy, if you make it part of your business model and you go national, like Lemon Tree has done, then you do become an inclusive company and an equal opportunity employer. So these are the 7 pillars. I'll just stop at this point. Maybe it'll be another conversation around this if you want to go in detail.
Thank you. Thanks. You've given in such a short 5 minutes, I think you just rolled out the entire workflow and process flow of how to go about it. Thank you so much. I'm sure we'll come back to you for a more detailed special session on just this. So thanks a ton, Aradhana. Thank you for sharing your organization's journey, of sharing about such a successful initiative. Of course, all of the innovation that you've come up with for specifically for hiring disabled people, and all of the other ESG initiatives at Lemon Tree also is superb to learn about. You've shared some amazing facts about the advantages of hiring individuals with disability, which is something that everybody should be aware of, about how they are truly meticulous. And it also leads to reduced attrition, is a true eye-opener, I'm sure, for a lot of the HR guys out there. What you shared about how you went about training them, working with NGOs is really very, very important, and how you worked over the years on getting this right is, I feel, also a brilliant case study. It should be studied at all business schools, I feel, Aradhana.
It is. There are 2 or 3, including my alma mater, IIM Ahmedabad, who have written cases over these last few years around it.
Awesome.
Some of them are using it in the classroom and some of them have just written it as an institute. So it's already happening.
Lovely. So thank you also for mentioning about parents being involved. It's about, what's the responsibility at their end. and about encouraging them to rise to the occasion. How to take this opportunity so beautifully offered by your team, expecting individuals to live up to this expectation, and enjoy all the self-worth that flows from there, about earning their own money for all the effort, and in an equal opportunity space, I think is the ultimate winner for each person who is being employed by you. So I really appreciate your passion for your work. I love the way you share about all of this.
Thank you.
And I'm sure there's a huge effort there for at your end with the superb team at Lemon Tree. And yeah, big salute to your chairman, Mr. Patu Keswani.
Yes,
Really,
indeed. My
thank
salute
you.
as well.
He said he started it, set the trend. Thank you, thanks.
He started it and he believes in it and he asks about it every single day. You see, that kind of passion is what drives it then.
That's so amazing. Really lovely. I really wish many people, I'm sure, will listen to this, Aradhana. And
I just want to make one suggestion, Chitra. If anybody wants to see this and understand it better, we have a video on our YouTube channel. It's got
yes,
the hashtag We Also Run Hotels. It
yeah.
was launched by us in Feb 2020, just before the pandemic came. It's a 5-minute video and it recaps exactly what I spoke about right now about our inclusion work as well as our other environment friendly practices. If anybody wants to see it, just go ahead, hashtag We Also Run Hotels on our YouTube channel.
I'll definitely put this up along with the podcast when we share it on all our social media.
Super.
And let's just hope that many people see it and listen to you, and they corporates figure and learn from your wonderful story. That's all.
Thank you.
That's all we can do. Thank you so much for your time. Wishing you all the very best.
Thanks, Chitra.
Thank you.
You were listening to the Special Needs Children podcast with Chitra Iyer, the CEO of MFA and a trustee with the Forum for Autism. If you find this podcast relevant and interesting, it will be great if you leave a review, share, like and subscribe. You can also let us know if there is any specific topic that you would like us to cover. Feel free to email her on chitra.iyer@myfinad.com, or you can call her on 9833785892. That is 9833785892.